Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everybody. It's Heather Nichols here. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. I'm on location this week. I'm in Rome, and we are a couple days away from Thanksgiving in the United States. I'll be here for Thanksgiving, and we're the night before the Maestro class, the Access Consciousness Maestro class, which is a beautiful class that just really allows people to step into massive magic and miraculousness and superpowers and all those fun things. And a group of really amazing peeps from all over the world coming together every year to play with energetic change and energetic possibility and just like the power of being us. And that's kind of a little bit along the lines of what I wanted to talk about today. Just going to keep this short, but we have I wanted to play with the power and the beauty of no. The word no. The word no is one of those things that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't like saying it to other people. A lot of people don't like hearing it. And it has this negative connotation in our world of like, if you say no to somebody, you're going to hurt their feelings or you're going to upset them or, they're not going to be able to handle it. If someone says no to you, maybe that means that something that you asked them for was wrong or, like that you're going to be upset or that it's like somehow you've offended them or something like that. There's so many reasons why people avoid no. And no is a beautiful, powerful thing. And not from a perspective of like having to be very like boundaried and like, refusing things and refusing to receive and all of that, because that is way more of a construct and way more of a like a way of being that's more about putting up barriers to the world to kind of like protect your sense of you. But I mean, I'm always kind of asking for a world where no isn't a bad word and it's not something that we need to avoid or like be afraid of or, be trying to not have in our world. And I notice it a lot because I don't really have a problem saying no to people like at all. I'm always willing to honor myself and have my own back and know what's going to work for me. But I do notice a lot of times when other people, I know when they want to say no to me and they don't, or they won't, or they feel weird about it, or, they like I just can tell that they want to say no, but they're not saying no, or they're, kind of torn about it or whatever. And what would it be like if we got over this thing about the word no, about saying no to somebody being being a bad thing, being something that we need to avoid or like give ourselves up for? There's a class in Access Consciousness called Right Voice for You, and it's a really cool class. And one of the exercises that they do sometimes in this class is they send people out in the world, and your whole task basically is to get people to say no to you. And so going out into the world, on the streets of whatever city you may be in, and asking people questions, trying to get a no, asking people for something, asking them to do something for you, asking them if they'll give you something, like asking people questions that are, sort of like, no, questions that you wouldn't normally ask a stranger, and seeing if you can get someone to say no. And so many times I've actually heard this is a different take on the word no, it's slightly different, use of it, but I've heard these stories so many times where people go out and they try to get people to say no to them, and it doesn't happen very often, like, they don't get very many no's, and it's kind of wild, like, seeing what people will let you do, what people will give to you, what how people will engage with you, and I love the exercise because it kind of proves that so many of our points of view about the word "no" are not really correct, and so often we don't wanna talk to people, we don't wanna ask for something, we don't wanna interact in such a way that might make someone say no. A, because I know for me, it's sometimes it's like, I don't wanna put someone in a position where they have to say no because they want to. And I also don't, and, there's the other side of that of, like, not wanting to hear the word no, not wanting to be said no to. And when we don't wanna be said no to, we have to shrink our worlds. We shrink our asks. We shrink how we approach the world, how we interact with the world. We make everything quite small, and we avoid so many things that we could be asking for because we don't want to hear that word. And so this is just kind of my quick little invitation of like, hey, what if we could get over that? What if we could actually not be afraid of no, not be afraid to ask for what it is that we desire, not be afraid to be said no to, not be afraid to say no to people. And the saying no is a big one as well. And I want to dive into that just a little bit more as well, because I think it's one of those places where people give themselves up a lot. They don't want to hurt people. They don't want to upset people. They don't want to make people feel bad. And so they don't want to say no. And a lot of times they don't say no. And I, years ago, I did this call called, what was it called? How to Say No with Ease. Because I was like, I really want people in the world to know how to say no with ease. Because I would really love it if people said no to me with ease. um, because I just am always so aware of what goes through people's worlds. And so, and the thing that's so for me, that's like kind of hard to like perceive that, to be aware of somebody wanting to say no and not saying no, is that it always has this feeling of like just that they're overwriting themselves, and that they're sort of going beyond what they might normally, um, how they would normally handle something, and how they might want to approach things with themselves, like how they might want to have their own back, and stretching into this world where they give themselves up for other people. And giving ourselves up for other people it's such a huge thing. It's just such a massive part of relationships, unfortunately, where people really think that they have to compromise themselves, not do what's true for them, not honor themselves, not have their own back, because they just there's so many points of view that other people have, and people think they have to just like take care of other people, and not want to make people feel uncomfortable if you say no to them. Well, I feel like I just would love to live in a world where that was where the word no was very easily said, not as a rejection, and where there wasn't any judgment around it, where it wasn't a word that meant anything about the person saying it or the person receiving it, and where we could actually look into our own world and be present with ourselves and be present with our bodies and go, is this actually going to work for me? It's such a great question. And is this going to work for me? If I do this, if I agree to this, is this going to work? That is one of the most pragmatic questions you can ask about anything, and it'll give you a sense of lightness or heaviness. It'll help you to feel like if you ask that question, is this going to work for me? You're either going to have a sense of expansiveness, or you're going to have a sense of kind of like contraction or what we would call heaviness, where whatever you're looking at isn't actually true for you. When something's heavy, it's actually a lie for you. It's not true. And we can live our lives with such lightness and such expansiveness and like actually choosing in the direction of more lightness and expansiveness every day, all the time. And sometimes actually the word no is part of that lightness and expansiveness, even if it means that somebody else might be upset, they might be let down, they might be disappointed, it's still, when something is true for us, it has a lightness and it has a sense of like expanding our lives and expanding our futures. And the willingness to go in that direction, to move in that direction, to choose in that direction, it's so powerful, because every time you choose whatever it is that you're choosing that matches the energy of that, like that has that light energy, it actually opens your future to be something greater than it was before. You don't even necessarily know what it is, but it opens the doors to your future. And no is absolutely part of that, as is yes, as is, lots of other responses and choices and ways of being. There's so much, it's not just about like always getting along and making people happy and, because if that's your priority, you're gonna have to give yourself up a lot. And you're also gonna have people in your life that expect you to give yourself up. Like they just approach you waiting for you to give yourself up, knowing that you're going to give yourself up, and they're fine with it. They would rather you give yourself up for them because they want to call the shots, they want to be in charge. That's not a relationship that is actually going to be very generative, or a relationship that's actually with somebody who actually is interested in you actually creating more for you having a greater future, and you thriving. It's, people that want us to give ourselves up for them, they do that because there's something in it for, like, they want to feel like they can control us to keep their lives small. And when we start to like choose into the lightness that is us, and always follow whatever it is that we, say, wherever it is that we're going, like follow the energy and go with the yes and go with the no and go with the expansive energy, whether it's a yes or a no or anything else in between. When we are constantly going with those energies, moving with those energies, choosing into those energies, that's how you make your world greater, your life greater, your business greater, your relationships greater, no matter what it looks like. It's a following of that lightness. And no matter, you might lose some people, you might have to change some relationships around, but when we're willing to have our own back, we continually step into something greater. And if you prioritize not making people uncomfortable and not saying no, and not like really knowing what's true for you and having your own back in your relationships, you're never going to create something that is truly phenomenal and beyond this reality for you. You're going to be far more like always keeping track of what's going on in the people around you and with the people around you. And our bodies are a big part of this. Like, our bodies are a huge resource for this. Our bodies actually show us like so much about what is true for us, what is available, what our choices are going to create, the choices that are going to create the greatest futures. Like, there's so many things that our bodies are showing us all the time, and information that they're giving us all the time, which I've done a lot of podcasts on that topic and happy to do more. I won't like, divert into that so much today, but I do want to mention it, because our bodies are a huge resource in knowing what is light, what is expansive, what is going to create greater, what's going to create a far more magical, potent, dynamic future that matches what you're asking for. And our bodies give us a lot of information when we pay attention to them. And they also, like, I know for me, like stepping into more like presence in my own body and more of a sense of having my own back and being willing to be present with people, not have to put barriers up to them, and be willing to say no when I need to. The more I like am present with my body, the more I have a sense of connection to my body as I move through the world, the more I'm willing to do that and able to do that in the world, to show up and have my back in a way that includes other people, doesn't reject them, doesn't mean I have to separate from them, includes them and allows me to see that whatever I choose, even if it's a no, saying no to someone, is when I know it's creating a greater future, it makes saying no a lot easier. It makes receiving no a lot easier even, because it doesn't matter anymore. Like the answer, the response, the whatever the choice is, it doesn't matter so much what it is as much as for me, like, is this creating a greater future for me? That's what I'm always interested in. And I can only look at the energy to determine that. When I look at the points of view that I have or the points of view that other people have, what people want me to do or don't want me to do, my points of view about that. When I look at all of those things, I get distracted away from what's true for me, my own body, and my willingness to show up powerfully in the world, to move through the world in a way that is empowered, where I have my own back, I'm connected to me, I'm including everybody in from the space of oneness, and I'm choosing like unstoppable in the choice for a greater future. And you'll see, like, there's so many examples of powerful leaders in the world that have a vision, they have a sense of possibility, they kind of like know where they're going, and they desire to go there, they have a clarity of vision, and they can't be swayed from it. And not being able to be swayed from your, what it is that you're creating, it's super powerful. And you have to be able to say no if that's the case. Because otherwise, if you can't say no to people or yourself even, then you're always going to be like pulled in one direction or another, or many directions. I know somebody that, like, kind of that just cannot say no to people, like, cannot say no to people, and they've really destroyed their life, and they're not very easy to deal with because you never know how many people they've said yes to in very conflicting ways, and so it's like you start to, like, it erodes people's sense of self when they don't have the power of no. And, or they have the power, or they have, like, the disempowered yes, which is the yes to please rather than the yes to create a greater future. And we know you've probably encountered people like that, and you might even be one of them, and it's not wrong. There's nothing messed up about you if that's true, or that person. It's just looking at a different possibility. And I think this willingness to say no, the willingness to be really powerful in our own space and with our own bodies is, it's definitely a developed skill in a way. It takes practice. It takes a certain level of, like, being willing to be an adult of consciousness, being willing to know what's going to create, and, say no to you too. Like, you don't just go spend all of your money or, whatever. Like, it's like you've got to operate as, if you want to create a greater future, you've got to operate in your own life with yourself as an adult of consciousness who is willing to make choices based on, the future, what is going to create something greater, and your commitment to that. And I would say too, like, getting clear on what our commitment is to that space is also something that we develop over time. And it has to be, for most people, I think, way bigger than just us, and connected to a vision of something we'd like to see in the world as a greater future for the planet. And then for me, it's like so much easier to be very clear about what works and what doesn't, when I'm moving in the direction of, like, this is creating a greater world. And it's not like, get out of my way, nobody talk to me, because that's more of an autonomous point of view, which also diminishes what we can create. But it's like I get to have me, and I get to, when you have you and you have your own back, the interplay, the interaction, the interface, the communion really that you get to have with other people, it's so much stronger because your sense of yourself is not weak. It's not eroded. You have a substantialness of being that then allows you to show up in the world and be like, I know me. I'm discovering more of me all the time. And I know me, and I have my own back, and I'm going to do what's true for me. And I'm not going to be swayed from that. And I'm totally willing to consider other people's points of view and perspectives and have those conversations. And, so it's like this like fluency, and you don't have to like hold tight to any of your points of view or any of your choices, because you can be willing to take in new information all the time that might change your point of view, because you're not committed to your point of view. You don't have to, you're not, it's not something that you have to like guard with your life, And some of the conversations that happen in the world of psychology around boundaries in particular, boundaries to me has always felt like shutting everybody out, like putting up walls that shut everybody out, rather than being like, I'm so willing to play with people and have a sense of communion with people, and still also very much know myself, and yet like enjoy the people that I know, the people in the world, the people in my life. And that is just, it's such a different way of being, and it takes some cultivation and presence and space and commitment and knowing ourselves, having the elements of intimacy with ourselves, honoring gratitude, allowance, vulnerability, and trust. And maybe I'll do a podcast on those. I may have even already, I don't remember. It's one of my favorite tools. So yeah, so just kind of a different conversation today. And if we look at it from the perspective of the entrepreneurial biome, it's like this is also a very key nutrient for your soil, for your ecosystem, is the element of no, the willingness to say no, the willingness to be said no to honor you and to honor the other people that you interact with on a daily basis, and know that NO, KNOW, that NO is, it doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean anything. It just is. And if people really follow the energy with what they're asking for and what they like to create, then they'll use it when it's appropriate to use it to create a greater future. And, when it isn't, they'll use something else. So yeah, I just, I kind of wanted to make a case for that sweet little word no that gets a bad rap. And I am going to also be doing a telecall in December that is kind of related to this. It's called Having Your Own Back, the art and elegance of something. I don't even remember the full title. Yeah, so there you go. But it's going to be a somatic call. So we're going to be using some of the tools from Access Consciousness, and we're also going to be using some body-centered tools that I have, because I actually do have a very strong awareness for me and for the people that I've worked with through the movement work that I do, and with bow spraying and some of the body-centered psychotherapy that I used to do before I started doing Access Consciousness. Is that when you're like powerful in your back body, like literally your back is strong and your back is online and you're powerful in your back, there is there's a sense of like, it's like, well, you get to be powerful in your whole body. Your back is a very supportive part of your structure, your spine, major structural element, right? And so when you have the power of that, and you have your own back in that way, physically and somatically, then it's really wild, because the way it translates into the world is like you show up in the world in such a way that is is very engaged, and like you don't give yourself up, So cultivating having our backs and the strength of our back body from a somatic perspective through movement and like body awareness exercises, it's a huge way to develop the muscle of being able to say no, being able to choose things that match what's true for us and have our own backs. And if you have a collapsed body, or, people do this, they shrink into the center of their body. And, it's going to create a different energetic reality for you that might probably make it harder for you to have that sense of having your back. And so we develop that on a physical level, a psycho-emotional level, a somatic level, and we get to have that energetically. We get to have that moving into the world, and it all kind of feeds into each other as well. So this call is going to be 3 calls, 3 days in a row, I believe, and less expensive for me. I think it's $150 or something like that, which is pretty cheap for one of my calls. And it's going to be, like an exploration into your body, your back, and having your own back through strength and presence and postural alignment from the Bowspring method. And then, really taking that into the world. And like basically I did Bowspring movement, which is the movement that I teach. I went to a weekend workshop with a friend a few weeks ago, and she texted me at one point, and afterwards, it was her first time doing a lot of Bowspring. And she said, I just can't override myself after this weekend. Like, she couldn't override what she knew to be true for herself and like give herself up for other people, basically. She couldn't do that after doing a weekend of Bowspring. I thought that was really brilliant. And I would love to see so much more of that in the world, and tapping into our bodies and the resources that they are, that allow us to really have that sense of like feeling very at home and empowered in our own skin, and trusting ourselves to do and choose what is true for us that will create a greater future, even if it means saying no. So I hope this was a contribution to you. If it was, please share it and like and do all the things. Yeah, hope to see you on the call or wherever we may cross paths. You can access the call by going to my website, which is heathernichols.com. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.